Let's use cupcakes to make these cute and fun Easter mini cakes. You'll need 3 cupcakes to make each mini cake. After baking, when the cupcakes are cool, unwrap them and trim off the tops, so don't worry if they're domed or overflowing because you're going to cut that part off anyway. 3 trimmed cupcakes makes a nice tall mini cake. Next, make your buttercream. The recipe for this for Minute Buttercream and my cupcakes are in the video description, or go to britishgirlbakes.com. For easy fillings for these mini cakes, you can use dulce de leche or caramel, or jam, or lemon curd, or whatever you like. It's easiest to put these mini cakes together with the buttercream in a piping bag. You'll need a cake board at least 4 inches wide, this is 6 inches, and start with a blob of buttercream on the middle of the cake board. Push the first cupcake down onto it, and then you'll need a buttercream dam to stop the filling oozing out from between the cake layers, which you pipe around each cake layer like a wall to hold the filling in. Then put the next cupcake on top, and the filling will stay where it's supposed to. Check the cupcakes are lined up directly on top of each other so the cake will be straight, and then repeat with another layer of filling and the final cupcake. For an Easter egg mini cake, put the bottom cupcake upright and the next 2 upside down. For a chick and a bunny, it doesn't matter for the bottom layers, but put the top cupcake upside down. Put the assembled mini cake into the fridge for 30 minutes or the freezer for 15 minutes before you frost it, so that it gets firm and less crumbly, and now it will be much easier to spread the frosting onto it. This first layer is called a crumb coat, which is a thin layer of buttercream to trap any crumbs that come off the cake, and you can smooth this with the side of your offset spatula or palette knife, or use a cake comb, but don't worry about getting it really neat because it's going to be covered up soon. For an Easter egg mini cake, before frosting it you need to carve it into an Easter egg shape, which is much easier than it sounds. When it's cold, after taking it out of the fridge or freezer, use a serrated knife like a bread knife to cut diagonally down around the top of the cake, starting by taking just a little bit off the top cupcake and then gradually carve off more and more until you have a cone shape with a rounded top. I put the bottom 2 layers this way, the bottom one upright and the next one upside down, so that they naturally make the rounded shape of the bottom of the egg. After carving the cake, if it's still cold, you can crumb coat it straight away. And although the crumb coat doesn't need to be smooth, it's a good idea to practice smoothing the crumb coat so you're confident by the time you get to the final coat. Using a piece of acetate is the best way to smooth a curved surface because the acetate wraps around the cake without leaving trails along the sides. Put the cake back into the fridge for 30 minutes or the freezer for 15 minutes, and now it's time to decorate. For the chick, cover the whole cake in yellow buttercream, and this design is great because you don't need to smooth the frosting. When the whole cake is covered up, use the tip of your spatula or palette knife to gently press against the frosting and then pull away, leaving little yellow peaks like fluffy chick feathers. Smooth out a little patch where the eyes will go, and then use black buttercream in a piping bag with a tiny piece cut off the end to squeeze out a dot for each eye, letting it bulge out until the eye is as big as you'd like it to be. And we'll add some white flecks in a minute to make these look less ghostly. Put the leftover yellow buttercream in a piping bag with the larger piece cut off the end and squeeze a dot on each side of the chick to make a wing, swiping it sideways with the back of a spoon. For the beak and feet, cut a V into the end of a piping bag like this, and use a spoonful of orange buttercream and hold the piping bag like this, like Pac-Man with an open mouth, and squeeze the buttercream out and stop squeezing as you pull away to make a pointed beak. Do the same thing for the feet, with 3 little spikes on each side of the chick. With the yellow buttercream, I'm piping a tail and adding some texture to make that look fluffy. To finish off the eyes, add a tiny white dot, using plain white buttercream in a piping bag with a really small piece cut off the end, trying to get the dot in the same place for each eye. Such a cutie. Now the Easter egg cake. You can use any colour for the frosting and spread it to cover the cake from top to bottom, and once you have the rough shape of an egg, use a little piece of acetate to scrape upwards to smooth the frosting. Mine started to look like a troll's hairdo, so remember to scrape over the top as well. And if you notice faint lines of texture going vertically up the cake, like I have here, hold the acetate sideways and scrape around the cake instead, to to get rid of those and leave the smoothest surface on the frosting. To decorate the egg, I'm just piping simple dots by cutting the end of piping bags with different colours, the same colours I'm using for the other mini cakes. And the dots are simple to pipe, but the trickiest part is keeping the line of dots straight. You could measure the height and use a toothpick to poke a few dots around the cake to use as a guide as you pipe. Or just do what I did and try to hold your piping bag in the same position and spin the cake on the turntable with the other hand so that all of the dots are the same height, and if they aren't, scrape them off with acetate and pipe them again. By cutting different amounts off the end of the piping bags, you can make your dots bigger to add some variety, or leave more or less space in between each dot. For the Easter bunny, start the same way you made the chick, by covering the cake with frosting without smoothing it. Then use your offset spatula or palette knife or a spoon and drag it in little arc motions around the cake to add texture to look like fur. Put the leftover white buttercream into a piping bag, with the end cut off to make a fairly large hole, and pipe 2 dots for the bunny's muzzle or cheeks, and 2 dots for its feet. I'm piping a tail and adding some texture to make that look fluffy. With pink buttercream in a bag with less cut off the end, pipe a nose, and you can use a toothpick to shape this into more of a triangle nose shape. We'll add more details to this soon. Pipe 2 eyes, just like for the chick, with black buttercream squeezed for a few seconds to expand to a big, flat dot, and then put the cake in the fridge for at least 30 minutes to set these details while you make the ears. Put a spoonful of sugar into a bowl and add a very small drop of pink colouring. Stir this around, smushing it with the sugar against the side of the bowl to spread it through all of the sugar, and then cut a marshmallow in half diagonally and press the cut side down into the sugar to make it pink. Do the same for the other half of the marshmallow. Poke a toothpick into the bottom, the flat part, of each ear. Take the cake out of the fridge, and to finish off the eyes, add a tiny white dot in the same place for each eye. Use a toothpick to score 2 lines on each foot to make toes, and then poke some holes into the muzzle or cheeks. Finally, poke the ears in, and this is easiest to do by pulling the marshmallow off the toothpick and poking just the toothpick in first, and then push the marshmallow onto the toothpick using the hole the toothpick made earlier. Isn't this bunny adorable? These can be kept in the fridge for 2 to 3 days, and if you want to transfer them from their cake boards onto a platter or cake stand, it's easiest to do that when they're cold so the frosting is firm and you won't damage it. Cakes taste best at room temperature, so if they're in the fridge, take them out about 2 hours before you eat them, so that the cake and buttercream warm up and soften. Yum! Get the recipe for these Easter mini cakes on BritishGirlBakes.com, and you'll also find my cake school there, with online courses and memberships to take your cake decorating skills to the next level. See you there!